the difference between the simple past and past continuous, as shown in this slide. So in this lecture, we are going to continue the rest of this topic. So in order to build like a sentence in this simple past form, in affirmative statements, you can use the following like order of using like subject followed by verb, the past form of the verb, and any additional information after the verb. So for example, I can say in the simple past, I walked that night. He felt scared. They traveled by ship. When it comes to the past continuous, the affirmative statements or affirmative sentences, you can build those sentences in the following form. So you can put the subject at the beginning of the sentence, followed by was or were, followed by verb plus ing. So you can say, for example, I was walking that night. He was feeling scared. They were traveling by ship. When I, for example, say Wolfgang Adams Mozart was an Australian musician and composer. He lived from 1756 to 1791. He started composing at the age of 5 and wrote more than 600 pieces of music. He was only 35 years old when he died. So you can see all the verbs like lived, started, wrote, was, died, or are all in the past or simple, past simple form. In the following sentence, yesterday Karen and Jim played tennis. They started at 10 o'clock and finished at 11:30. So I can, for example, conclude that. So at, for example, 10:30 they were playing tennis. So the time between 10 up to 11:30 they were playing. They started, for example, at 10 o'clock and finished at 11:30. So when I would like to talk about a time between 10 to 11:30, for example, at 10:30, you can say they were playing tennis. So the meaning of they were playing tennis, it could refer to they were in the middle of playing. They had not finished playing. This is like I can say like a sketch to show you the difference between using the simple past and the past continuous. So you can imagine that when you're talking about like the past continuous, you are in this point, and when you talk about like simple past, you should talk about or think about this point. So I was doing something. I was in the middle of doing something at a certain time. The actual situation had already started before this time, but had not finished. See the graph below. So, in order to understand this figure, you can't just follow the explanation or the note in this. I would put it in the red. Any question? So, the simple past and the negative statement of the simple past you can use like the subject followed by did and not, and then the verb and any additional information to complete the sentence. So, for example, I can say, I didn't work that night. I didn't feel scared. They didn't travel by ship. The yes question, the yes no questions form of the simple past, you can make it by using did followed by the subject and the verb and any additional information you would like to add to the sentence or to make the sentence more clear. So you can say, for example, did you work that night? Or did he feel scared? Did they travel by ship? The short answers for the simple task. In the case of affirmative short answer, you can say yes, comma, I did, or he did, they did. The negative form of the short answer for the simple past, you can say no, I didn't. No, he didn't. No, they didn't. The the past continuous. So the negative statement of the past continuous, you can put it in the following form. So you can put the subject followed by was or were plus not, then use verb plus ing and any additional information. So, for example, I wasn't walking that night. He wasn't feeling scared. They weren't traveling by ship. The yes no questions for the past continuous tense where you can use was or were followed by subject plus verb and ing. So, for example, were you walking that night? Was he feeling scared? Were they traveling by ship? So, the answer for the past continuous tense in the case of affirmative, you can say yes, I was, or yes, he was, or you can say yes, they were. No, the negative form for the short answer, you can say no, I wasn't. No, he wasn't. No, they weren't. So, in order to use like the WH word to form an information question in for the simple past tense, you can say, for example, or you can use when, why, or where, followed by did, then the subject, and then the verb, and any additional information. So You can say, for example, when did you walk? Why did he feel scared? Where did they travel to? So, in case you would like to ask about this subject in the simple past, you can just say who walked, or if you would like to ask about something um, happened, you can just say what happened. So there's no if date or subject here because in this case you would like to ask about the subject. On the other hand, the past continuous, the information questions using the WH word you can use, for example, when, why, or where, followed by was or where, the subject and ing form of the verb. So when were you walking there? Why was he feeling scared? Where were they traveling to? The same thing regarding asking about the subject. So you can just say who was working, what was happening. So can I use, for example, he like instead of was, can I use where in this case? منة الله. So here's some like additional examples related to the simple past and an additional example related to past continuous. Mm. Mm, so in the case of using simple past and past continuous in time clauses, uh,
Sorry, it's me.
no. So sequential events. Past time clauses describe the time relationship of two past events and show the order of those events. Sentences with two simple past clauses can show that one completed event happened after the other, before, after, or when introduces the time clause. So, for example, I wrote the letter before I hear the news. So, the, the first event here Uh, I should wrote that or put that first event in the simple past. So if you follow this note sentence with two simple past clauses, the two simple past clauses can show that one event happened after the other. So I can say, for example, I wrote the letter before I hear the news. Or I can put it like, after I hear the news, I wrote the letter. When I hear the news, I wrote the letter. On the other hand, sometimes a sentence with a when or after time clauses expresses a cause and effect relationship. The first event causes the second event. So the difference between the first note and the second one, it is related to the first one talk about two simple past clauses. Uh, can show that one completed event happened after the other, while the second one includes using a sentence with a when or after time clauses express a cause and event. A cause and event. A cause and effect relationship. The first event causes the second event. For example, when the power went out, the room got completely dark. So that the cause or the first event. After the power went out, the room got completely dark. And some textbook related to grammar, uh, the first part, which include when or after time clause expressions, they call this part of the sentence the time clause, while the other part they call they called it in that textbook main clause. Both while and when introduce a past continuous clause that means during the time. While I was dancing, I lost my necklace. When I was dancing, I lost my necklace. When can also introduce a simple past clause that means at the time, but while cannot. So let's see the difference between those. Past continuous, for example, I was dancing when I lost my necklace. So I can say or put that sentence in this form by using when, but I can't say I was dancing while I lost my necklace. This is incorrect. Simultaneous events. Sentences with two past continuous clauses typically show that two activities were happening at the same time. Both while and when can introduce a time clause. For example, they were laughing while they were playing cards. They were laughing when they were playing cards. So when the phone rang, I was sleeping. The phone rang while I was sleeping. So when referred to at the time, while referred to during the time. So sentence A and sentence B have the same meaning, but they use different tenses. After I finished my work, this is related to the time clause and main clause. I went to bed. I went to bed after I finished my work. There's something like an important thing related to the academic writing. When it comes to a time clause and main clause, you must put a comma at the end of a time clause when the time clause comes first in a sentence. So, for example, after I finished my work, this is the time clause. So after the time clause, when the time clause comes first in a sentence, you should, you must, not should, you must put a comma after the time clause. Uh, but when the time clause comes second in the sentence, you don't need to put a comma at the end of the time clause. Let's see this sentence. The phone rang while I was watching. Uh, so you can just say in this case, for example, oh, here's the comma after the time clause. When the phone rang, I was watching. When the phone rang, I answered it. While I was doing my homework, my roommate was watching TV. Any question up? طلاب بتستخدمون؟
نعم العفو دكتور.
ده تفتهمون الحكي
أنا بالنسبة لي واضح.
بقية الطلاب يعني مشكلة. Past perfect. Past perfect for the affirmative statement. You can just use subject followed by had, past participle or the verb, and any additional information. the negative statements of the past perfect can just use the subject followed by had and not, and the past perfect participle of the verb. Also, the yes no questions, you can just say had you, so had you liked before. So you use had followed by subject and the past participle of the verb. The short answer for the past perfect, you can just say yes, I had, or yes, he had, yes, he had, or you can just in the negative case, you can just say no, I hadn't, no, he hadn't, no, they hadn't, and so on. The informational questions using the WH4, you can just use, for example, where, what, followed by had, followed by subject, and the past participle of the verb. And the same thing when it comes to ask about the subject in the past perfect. You can just say what had happened. So there's no subject here. Order of events in the past. The past perfect expresses the relationship in time between two past events. It shows that one action or state occurred before another action or state in the past. The past perfect expresses the first, the earlier event. Um, Very important to how can you distinguish or between the simple past and past perfect. So the past perfect expresses the first or earlier event. The simple past often expresses the second or later event. So I had just completed the exam. I felt so relieved. So the past perfect, I should use the past perfect with the first event or the earlier event, and then I use simple past with the second event or the later event. So just I had just completed the exam. I felt so relieved. So I felt relieved after completing the exam. So the first event was completing the exam, and the second event was when I feeling when I felt like so the past time can be recent or distant. Recent time, for example, Miguel called me this morning, but I wasn't there. I'd gone to a meeting. Distant time. Miguel wrote me last year, but I never got the letter. I I've moved away. The past perfect and past time clauses. The past perfect is often used in sentences containing past time clauses. The past perfect is used to indicate the first event. The simple past is used to indicate the second event. Before, by the time, when, until, and after introduce the time clause. The thief had escaped, so I called the police. We had calmed down by the time the police came. We had been upstairs when we came home. We hadn't noticed until we hear the footsteps and so on. So in sentences with before, after, by the time, and until, the past perfect is sometimes replaced by the simple past with no difference in meaning. This is especially common with before and after. For example, I gone inside before I took off my coat. This is in the past perfect and simple past form. I can just put it both tenses in one tense, and I can say, for example, I went inside before I took off my coat. After I gone inside, I took off my coat. Or I can just say, after I went inside, I took off my coat. Expressions used with the past perfect. The past perfect is often used with the same adverbs and prepositions that are used with the present perfect, like already, yet, still, ever, never, for, since, and just. These expressions help to clarify the sequence of past events. By lunchtime, we had already discussed the new budget and written a report. We hadn't written the new vacation policy yet. I had lived in Texas for 20 years, 12 years before I moved to California. Had she ever traveled abroad before she went to college? No, she had never left her hometown. So, you can use by followed by a time can be used with the past perfect to express the later time in the sentence. We had finished by then. By noon, we had hiked 2 miles. Here's some additional examples for your information or for just see and compare. So let's stop at this point. Uh, we'll talk about the past passive in the next lecture. So in case you have any question, you can stay in this Google Classroom. Otherwise, you can leave. Love it. That quality is good. Question. لا كده راح نتوقف في هذه النقطة عند الباس باسف، واللي عنده سؤال يبقى واللي ما عنده